Final movie in this episode of Boston-based movies is The Town.
The Town Kid.
Directed by Ben Affleck in 2010, based on the book Prince of Thieves by Chuck Hogan. This film launched Ben's career back into like Hollywood's good graces.
His resurrection.
He previously directed Gone Baby Gone before this movie, which was a phenomenal directorial debut starring his brother Casey Affleck. But he took The Town to another level, cementing himself as a seriously talented filmmaker and triple threat.
And it changed the court of public opinion about him. At this point of his career, before he made Gone Baby Gone, he had become kind of like a joke in Hollywood. He had a bunch of bombs back to back to back, and he was dating J-Lo for a while, and I feel as though, especially the people of Boston, didn't really take him that seriously anymore. And then he came out with this 1-2 punch of Gone Baby Gone in The Town, and he just came back into the good graces of the city that birthed him.
And again, he's that rare triple threat in Hollywood where he pulled it off in The Town. He's been doing it since with Argo and some other movies where he's writer, director, actor, like Clint Eastwood. Not many people have been able to do this. And The Town is a much simpler film compared to the other two in terms of emotionality. It doesn't mean it's not a great film.
Essentially, it's a robbery crime drama.
Yes.
Crime drama.
Yeah, so The Town is about a longtime thief, Ben Affleck, who plays Dougie, planning his next job, and also tries to balance his feelings for a bank manager connected to an earlier heist and a hell-bent FBI agent looking to bring him and his crew down.
This film is one of the best modern crime dramas by far, which is why it's on this list. But also, Ben is a smart director. He directs his action so well. He directs the chase scenes so well. And also, this film has such an iconic image of the robbers dressed as nuns in the first robbery. In the second robbery. And it became an iconic image in the marketing campaign. Pretty much all the posters were the nun holding the machine gun. And that image was such a striking image where he's smart enough to know, like, this contradiction of a nun holding a machine gun can really get people's attention. You know what I mean? I think that really helped sell the film.
Another decision I think he made that was very smart for the film was hiring Robert Elswit for cinematography, who's, if you don't know, he's Paul Thomas Anderson's cinematographer.
He's pretty good.
He's all right at his job, besides Phantom Thread.
He also shot a few of the Mission Impossible movies.
Yeah, so this film is beautifully made, beautifully shot, and also the cast is phenomenal. And let's get into the characters.
Before the lead cast, I just want to mention, just like Gone Baby Gone, Affleck cast a lot of Boston locals for the small supporting roles in the film, and that adds so much realism to the quality of the performances. And even the two guys in their crew, those other two guys who are actors you don't even know or recognize because they're just Boston locals.
One's in Gone Baby Gone,
One's in Gone Baby Gone. So it adds to the realism because these are real people from the real city, and it's authentic.
There's a bunch of great opening shots of Charlestown and all the triple-deckers and all the locals and the townies in their homes because Charlestown is different than Southie. Southie is South Boston. Charlestown is just like a little northwest of downtown Boston. It's where the Battle of Bunker Hill, Bunker Chill Monument is. So it's a different part, and Charlestown's known as having, I think they state in the film,
the highest robbery rate.
Yeah, there are over 300 bank robberies in Boston every year. Most of these professionals live in 1 square mile neighborhood of Charlestown.
And it's separated by a bridge, so oftentimes when a robbery takes place, they try to shut the bridge down.
Yeah, so it's basically like a familial trade in Charlestown. And so let's move on to the characters. Dougie, played by Ben Affleck, is a wicked smart and very disciplined mastermind behind all the bank robberies. He seems to have bank robberies down to a science with his planning and execution because he's been doing it all his life, like his father. But unlike his colleagues, Dougie has a conscience. He insists on never killing people during jobs. He treats the teller or the bank manager in the beginning at the first heist with respect, which he eventually falls for.
And he's always had trouble with crime in his past. But you can tell, and there are hints of it in the beginning of the film, where he's trying to turn his life around. He's going to AA meetings, so he's trying to improve himself. And yes, he's kind of stuck and handcuffed to this life of crime. But part of him wants to escape this life and start something new start a new fresh life in a different state, a different place.
Yeah, unlike Will Hunting, who never wants to leave Boston throughout the film of Good Will Hunting until the end, Dougie can't wait to get out of Charlestown. He's desperate for a new life, which he wants to make in Florida. And I think Dougie is regretful for his past mistakes. And he was once a great hockey player and had a potential legitimate chance of being a professional hockey player, but he blew that shot due to his youthful arrogance and temper. And Dougie's his soft-tempered personality seems to be a form of repentance, just like his AA meetings for his past mistakes and the life out of Charlestown that he blew. And like many criminals, he then turns to the profession out of necessity, and in Charlestown, it's basically a family trade.
And the thing is, he feels as though he's kind of stuck in this trade because not only does he feel handcuffed to Fergie, the local mob gangster who's in charge of the area, every time they pull a job, they have to give him a cut of it, but he also feels very much tied to Jeremy Renner's character, James, because James went to prison for Doug, so he feels as though he owes so much of such a large debt to James where he's kind of stuck having to pull these jobs with him to kind of pay him back for what James did for him in the past.
Yeah, so James Coughlin, nicknamed Jem, is Dougie's childhood best friend and brother to Dougie's supposed baby mama, played by Blake Lively. And Jem is an incredibly loyal friend to Dougie, like you said, having served prison time for him after killing a person who was going to take Dougie out in their past. But he's also a wild card, and prison has made him impatient. And he wants to make as many scores as possible, and he rushes their final job. And he's easily the most interesting character in the movie. And Jeremy Renner's performance is phenomenal, and his accent is like one of the best accents I've ever seen for someone not from Massachusetts doing a Boston accent.
He nailed it, and he was nominated for an Oscar for this.
Yeah, and he surrounded himself with actual bank robbers and convicted bank robbers from Charlestown for research to get the accent right, get the mentality right, and he's the best part of the movie, in my opinion.
Jem is such a great character because, yes, he's a loyal friend and he loves Dougie and would die for him, but also he's so dangerous. He's a killer, and he wouldn't hesitate for a second between killing you or not. And there's always this line that Renner's balancing between possibly getting set off, and you're always hoping Dougie or other characters don't set him off because you don't know what could happen.
And Jem's erratic behavior and wild card mentality is the reason why in the opening heist they have to take Rebecca Hall hostage, who plays Claire, and which eventually leads to her being entangled in the film storyline because they find out that Claire is from Charlestown too, and they're worried about her making them in public. And this is where Jem, because he's crazy now after doing all this prison time, he offers to take her out, just like casually.
And Doug's like, we don't have to kill her because obviously they were wearing masks. She didn't see any of their faces, but still Jem's worried of her being able to identify them in any way because they live in the same neighborhood. And this is where Doug starts following Claire and also eventually develops a romantic relationship with her.
But literally they know that she recognized the tattoo on Jem's neck.
Yeah. So she does have evidence that could put them away. But the problem with this is Doug sees Claire as a way out. It's the first time he ever has developed a connection with someone outside of Charlestown. And
because she's a toonie.
She's not from Boston. She moved to Boston for work.
And that's what people not from Charlestown who moved to Charlestown are. Locals are townies, non-locals are toonies.
And so I think that's what's appealing to Claire for Dougie is because she's not from here. She's not part of the neighborhood. And so for the first time in his life, he feels like he can maybe start something fresh with a new person in a new place. But ultimately, that can't ever work out because he's hiding the fact that he was one of the bank robbers that took her hostage in the beginning of the film.
Yeah, so Dougie's dealing with a lot in this film. You know, the stakes are immense for this guy, and you can't help but feel happy for him the way the movie ends up. But throughout the film, he's dealing with not only the money he has to pay to Fergie, but he also is struggling with falling in love with Claire, hiding it from Jem and his crew, evading the FBI, planning the next heist, and figuring out how to get out of Charlestown forever. And John Hamm is really great in this movie as he plays the FBI Agent Frawley.
This is his first major role outside of Don Draper.
Yeah, it's kind of like a cliche FBI agent isn't afraid to get his hands dirty, but he's obsessed with finding or catching Dougie in the act of robbery.
He's like Al Pacino in Heat.
And this movie's very reminiscent to me of Heat, especially that massive shootout that they have.
And so obviously, we'll just get right to the climax of not only is it an amazing shootout, but it happens inside of Fenway Park.
It's that fucking Fenway guy.
Fenway Park. So the last heist, the big heist that Doug's going to retire off of, is they plan to steal several $1 million from the security vault in Fenway Park. And they're very successful in their act of the robbery, but ultimately are found out by the FBI because Krista gives them away to John Hamm. And that leads to this epic shootout inside of Fenway Park, a place that all Bostonians know very well. It's near and dear to our hearts. So it was amazing to see this place where we've walked through so many times with so much love and affection, and to see it as the set piece for an epic shootout was just mind-blowing for me.
Yeah, and this shootout is awesome. Again, it's reminiscent of the shootout in Heat, which I don't think will ever be topped.
Never.
Michael Mann's Heat shootout is phenomenal.
Yeah, we'll talk about that eventually.
But this is great. Ben did a great job with this escape in this shootout sequence, and it must have been a dream come true for Ben. You know, not just making another Boston-based movie, but to film it at Fenway and then hold the premiere at Fenway. It must have been a really special night for the guy. And they even shot scenes at Fenway mid-season during games, which was unprecedented. Mm-hmm. But, you know, when you're Ben Affleck and you can do pretty much anything you want in Boston, he managed to make an epic shootout for this epic crime thriller there. Not to mention, this film also has fantastic car chase scenes.
Yep.
The robbery where they're wearing the nun outfits, I think it's the second heist they pull. It has that awesome chase where they swap cars for that minivan.
But the chase happens throughout Beacon Hill.
Yeah, so you watch this minivan, this crappy V4 thing that has no acceleration, full of robbers dressed in nun outfits trying to outrun police officers. But thanks to the tiny side streets of Boston, all the one ways, they eventually managed to make it out.
If you've never driven in Boston, just know that it's not like LA, it's not like New York, it's not like DC.
It doesn't make sense at all.
The roads are an absolute mess. There's no grid formation at all. It's just tight turns and one ways everywhere. So it proved as a very helpful environment for them to get away from the cops.
Yeah, just great chase sequences, great shootouts. And I love the shot where they pull up next to a cop, and he's just sitting in his cruiser, and the cop just turns his head away to pretend like he never saw them, which Ben actually based off a real cop telling him about a robbery that he witnessed where it really happened to him.
Hey, I believe it. I mean, if that cop does anything, he's dead.
I would turn my head.
I'd turn my head.
Right away.
Yeah.
A major theme of this film is redemption, a redemption for Dougie's past, a redemption for his mistakes, and trying to get out of Charlestown.
Mm-hmm. So a few things I love about this film. The clothing was spot on.
I was going to say that too.
This is if you watch this film, this is what people in Boston dress like. Well, they dressed like 10 years ago. This is what we wore. This is what people look like. This is the kind of clothes they wear. It was right on the money.
The Departed is spot on too, with Leo DiCaprio's wardrobe, with like the black Boston hat and just the way he dresses.
The
in
hoodie,
like the white Air Force Ones.
Yep.
Boston 101.
Yeah, but this one is perfect. And also the haircuts. Most of the guys are rocking that tight Boston fade.
Hell
I love it.
Hell yeah.
I've worn that for many years of my life.
I might have to do that soon. Got the Corona flow going real long right now.
But that's the most popular haircut in Boston. It still is.
Yeah, it's a tough town, you know. It's a prideful town. You gotta look badass and look tough.
I love the arc of Jeremy Renner's character, because during the climactic shootout, he manages to separate from the rest of the pack, and he's on the run, and then John Hamm and a few other feds and police officers start chasing him on foot. And then they have a small shootout, and then he gets cornered. And his character, the last thing he wants to do is go back to prison. He would rather die than go back to prison. He even said so much earlier in the film. And so what he does is he's cornered by these cops, and he checks his guns, and he has no more bullets. And so he's like, fuck it, I'm not going to prison again. He goes back out even though he has no bullets, and the cops shoot him to protect themselves, obviously. And so he chooses suicide by cop rather than going back to prison, which is a fitting end to the character and a great conclusion to that storyline.
And then Dougie, I love the ending of this film for him, where he makes it, he gets out, and he eventually he avoids the trap that the FBI and John Hamm planned for him with the help of Claire. And he leaves that bag of cash for Claire in like the Boys and Girls Club. I think that's where she works.
Yeah.
With the note and the insinuation that he's down in Florida with the orange to come and find him. Yeah. And I love how it ends with him. He makes it to Florida. Maybe it's a dream, who knows? But he makes. I think it happened. Yeah, he makes it to Florida. He's on the river, and he's got his little cabin, his little house, or wherever. And
he's got a beard.
It's a happy ending, and it's a wonderful movie. And I think Ben Affleck's a seriously talented guy. And I'm so glad that he got to rep Boston with this film. And I don't think anyone will ever top a Boston film of this magnitude after The Departed.